Celtics just lost by 50 points, 60 points. I don't know what the final score was. I didn't watch the second half, but I figured this is the perfect time to go and answer some questions you guys had about the Boston Celtics this upcoming offseason. I asked on Twitter to drop some questions. If you don't follow me on Twitter at Joel Dells, there's like 40 or so questions I have here. It's about the offseason, it's about how the season went, it's about Joe Mazzulla, trade targets, a lot of questions, and this is just about Boston. So, of course, the Celtics season ends today on a terrible note. They were minus 900 favorites coming into this series. One of the biggest favorites we have ever seen, not just in NBA history, but in sports history. I heard something today that even the New England Patriots weren't even this heavily favored when they were undefeated going up against the Giants. So that was the kind of expectations this Boston team had. And you have to give credit to the Knicks. Those first two games, I think you could say Boston outplayed New York for majority of the games, but in the other two wins New York had, they outplayed Boston, specifically in this game six. I mean, they got their ass kicked as bad as I've seen Boston get their ass kicked all season long. With that being said, there's 35, 40 questions I have here. I'm going to do my best to get to all of them. I'm sure there's some repeaters in here, and I'll be honest. I'm not editing none of this. I'm not going back and forth. I'm going to read the question verbatim. If I don't like the question, I'm probably just going to skip it and move on and go to the next one. First question up. This comes from Isaiah on Twitter. Shout out to Isaiah, pick a side fan, longtime fan, always in my mentions, Celtics fan. Love my guy Isaiah. He said, "What's the most you'd be willing to give Dallas for the number one pick?" And I've seen a lot of Cooper Flag takes out there. I was on Fanspo trying to find some trades, trying to cook up my own trades. Boston's not getting Cooper Flag. I don't think the Dallas Mavericks are interested in trading Cooper Flag. The reports out there already that they're not giving him up. So hypothetically, anybody but Jason Tatum, like as much as I love Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and these guys, everyone would be on the table for Cooper Flag. But realistically, he's going to be number one overall pick, and the Mavericks are not shopping him, not interested, and they shouldn't be. He's a generational prospect. He's going to be awesome. So moving on to the next question. This comes from the kid. He's asking me, do you still believe in Joe Mazzulla? I think he got exposed today. And sorry, my hair, I just got out the shower. Again, I'm not editing none of this. You're here not for my looks. Maybe you're here for my looks. I don't know. You're here for my Boston Celtics takes. But the kid asked, do you still believe in Joe Mazzulla? Yes, I do believe in Joe Mazzulla. If you look over these 3 years since he's been the head coach, nobody's won more. He has the highest win percentage in NBA history. And I know there's a lot of conflicting takes about Joe Mazzulla. And the fact that the Boston Celtics are so good, the talent is so elite, people just think any head coach would come in here and they would win 60 games and a championship and all like that, and maybe so. But what Mazzulla has shown us so far through 3 years is you're going to be a top two seed, and he has a finals appearance, an ECF appearance, and of course this year they did go out. Sorry, I'm not going to lie. This was the first time the Celtics left me disappointing in a few years. Even the 3-0 lead against Miami, they came back from made a series, and if JT doesn't twist his ankle, who knows? But I still believe in Joe Mazzulla. I don't think he's on the hot seat. With that being said, if in the next couple of years Boston doesn't return to the finals, he probably gets fired. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to being the Boston Celtics head coach and how great of a team this is. But I still believe in Joe Mazzulla 100%. Moving on here, we have a lot of questions. This comes from Big Fish. In a perfect offseason, how do you expect the Celtics to move forward leading to Tatum's comeback? This is a loaded question because we don't know what Tatum's comeback is going to be, right? We don't know, is Jason Tatum going to miss the entirety of next season? There's reports out there that since he got his Achilles surgery done so quickly, there's a better chance he could return quicker into next season. I think at absolute earliest, it's after the All-Star break. The most would be he's not back until the 2026 season. And realistically, I don't think he's going to play at all next year. I feel like it's going to be difficult for him to return to the lineup towards the end of the season, and then we're asking him to play playoff minutes. We saw how physical these playoffs were. That's going to be asking a lot of a guy who's coming off a torn Achilles. So my guess, he doesn't play at all next season. Just making sure my mic is on. He doesn't play at all next season. That would be my guess. But I didn't even answer the question. My bad. The perfect offseason, I think there's really only two people that are on the trade block, and we're going to talk about them in some trades moving forward. But I really think it's Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Jaylen Brown is interesting, but barring something huge like Giannis, like for some reason Cooper Flag, which is just unrealistic, but something of that proportion, I think Jaylen Brown's here to stay. I know his contract is huge, and he really didn't have a good playoff run. He had like two or three good games in whatever the 10 we played, 11 we played this season. So He had a pretty poor playoff performance, but let's not forget who Jaylen Brown is. In the playoffs last year, ECF MVP, Finals MVP, one of the best defenders when he's locked in. In my opinion, he is the best Robin in the NBA. His handle in these playoffs definitely lost him. It felt a little bit more like 2023 Jaylen Brown than 2024 Jaylen Brown, but I still think Jaylen Brown is an exceptional player. This comes from Juju. What would be your first move after here? I'm assuming after this game six loss. So there's really only one trade that I was able to find. And if you're a Celtic fan and you try to go on one of these trade machines, it's hard. It's difficult. Boston is a second apron team, so there's a lot of trade restrictions. They can only get back, or they have to get back less salary than they give out. They cannot aggregate multiple salaries to try to bring in a bigger salary. It's difficult for them to try to find a trade that really makes the team better while also cutting salary. With that being said, I did have one trade here. Again, I'm not editing this. I'm pulling it up on my phone. Um, this trade would get the Boston Celtics Daniel Gafford. So Drew Holiday is the number one person I'm looking at because of his age, because of his contract. KP, they're one and two, but Drew Holiday to Dallas just makes all the sense in the world, right? Kyrie Irving's going to be missing all of next season or majority of next season. He'll probably be back by the All-Star break, but they've already put it out there that they want a veteran guard to add to this team. And they kind of have a plethora of bigs, right? You have AD and Derek Lively. So Daniel Gafford is a little expendable in this trade. Celtics would be getting Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, and Dwight Powell. The Celtics would be trading Drew Holiday and the 32nd pick in the draft. I don't know what the picks would look like. Do you have to add on more one side or the other? I don't think it's a ton in either direction. I feel like that's a pretty fair trade for Drew Holiday. Daniel Gafford's 26 years old. You know, he's a lob threat. He's an awesome rim protector. I think it'd be a really nice addition for Boston. PJ Washington is too would be a great role player. Is Dallas willing to give up both of those guys to get Drew Holiday? Maybe. But I think what Drew Holiday showed in this postseason was he could still be an elite level defender. He could still be a great shooter. And these last two postseasons, he's been pretty damn good. I know he was labeled as a bit of a choker with Milwaukee, but for Boston, he's been pretty damn awesome. So moving on here, this comes from Ugana. He says tweaks to Joe's offense. Live and die by the three can't work going forward. Who stays? Who goes realistically? So the second part of that question we already answered, but tweaks to Joe's offense. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I probably should have done a bit more research before starting this up, but it felt like last season, 2024, when the Celtics won the championship, they were, of course, still living and dying by the three, but I felt like you saw more wrinkles in the post game. Porzingis was one of the most efficient post players in the NBA, and he still was this past season. But Tatum and Brown as well were two of the more efficient guys. Tatum specifically last season, and I feel like we didn't see as many wrinkles as that, especially in the playoffs against the Knicks. But realistically, there's going to be minor tweaks to Joe's offense, but you live and die by the three is I don't love the wordage, but it's kind of what it is, right? The Celtics do have awesome 3-point shooters, right? Payne Pritchard, Sam Hauser. I know Tatum's only like a 34-ish% guy, but he takes 10, he takes some tough ones. I think you live with that. Jaylen Brown has to get better. You know, he was around 32%. Drew Holiday was great. Derek White was great. They have great shooters. You should lean into that. And I think they'll continue to do that. Moving on, this comes from Brent. He said, after all this, I ponder if the Celtics go in on a Giannis trade. Trade JT and a bench player. Jason Tatum's not available. Number one, I don't think the Bucks would trade for Jason Tatum coming off a torn Achilles, and I just don't think it's realistic. This comes from Hoops, Bulls fan Hoops on Twitter. All these come on Twitter, like I said. Obviously, you guys are going to trade people for salary cap, but who is off limits? Do you think Al Horford returns? Who do you want the Celtics to target this offseason? Jason Tatum's off limits. Again, he's not getting traded towards Achilles. I think Derek White is off limits. Payne Pritchard's not off limits in the sense of does he have to get thrown in on like a bigger trade to get like a real star here, but a 1-for-1 or like a salary dump. Payne Pritchard's making $9 million a year. He's not untouchable, but it's just not a contract you're looking to move off of. And Jaylen Brown is pretty untouchable, right? Again, if there is a superstar out there that people think is better than Jaylen Brown, I think it's a possibility. But again, Celtics are going to have to be shedding some salary, and it's hard to find a guy that's better than Jaylen Brown making less money than Jaylen Brown. So Tatum, D. White, probably Jaylen Brown, and probably Payne Pritchard because of his contract. Moving on here, we have a lot of questions about like, realistic trade targets, your next move. Again, it is difficult to find trades for the Boston Celtics. Just because of, again, second apron. And this is a team that going into next year is going to try to take a step back. So if you're a Celtic fan, it's hard to find trades that make this team better. So yeah, we can make trades with teams like, I've saw a bunch of like, what about Porzingis to the Brooklyn Nets? That's a team that could potentially buy low on a guy that has super high upside. Can you attach Porzingis and maybe a pick to go out to get a Cam Johnson? I don't think Nick Claxton would be super available. He's young. He fits this timeline, but that's someone that two guys that I would also be interested in, Cam Johnson and Claxton, because the Nets are still rebuilding, and Porzingis feels like a bit of a buy low candidate. I know people are saying like Porzingis has no trade value, or you'd have to attach a pick to get off Porzingis. I disagree. He was pretty damn good in the regular season. It's just this really weird illness, and of course he gets banged up. He doesn't have the highest trade value in the world, but he's not somebody that has negative value in my eyes. This comes from Liam Sags. I was going to say on Twitter, but I didn't. Do you think the Celtics need more versatility in their offensive attack philosophy? Or do you think it's more about players not getting trapped in bad habits, especially when shots aren't falling? We saw this from Boston a couple times, right? I think in game one, I think against the Magic at times as well. Game one against the Knicks, that was. They obviously live and die by the three. We talked about that already. Living and dying by the three is fine as long as those threes come with the right process, right? If the Boston Celtics are driving and kicking and they're passing the ball around the perimeter and getting open looks, live and die by the three all you want. You cannot live and die by the three by bringing the ball up court and shooting contested three with 15 seconds left on the shot clock. So those are, that's just the context that needs to get put into this when we're talking about offensive philosophy or their offensive tack in general. Because when Boston's offense is rolling, like we saw last year in the postseason, it's beautiful. It leads to open shots. But again, a 3-point shot has a lower probability of going in than a shot at the rim. It's just simple math. So the Celtics will probably be missing more shots because they're taking harder shots. But as long as those threes are open and it's in good process, I don't think the philosophy has to change much. I wouldn't be opposed to getting somebody. Najee Marshall is someone I would love if they do swing a trade for with the Dallas Mavericks, someone that can attack the rim and get downhill and just an aggressive player. But overall, I think when the shots aren't falling, kind of have to keep shooting. The math tells you that these are 35 to 40% 3-point shooters, and if they're open, that percentage only goes up. So I don't think they need to change much. Moving on here. This is another question about the Celtics offensive concept. I understand the overreaction. The first two games, 25 for 100. This game they didn't shoot well, but no. Do you think the Celtics, or do you want the Celtics to trade everyone, I guess, and tank next season like what Golden State did several years ago for James Wiseman? Or do you still want them to compete for the Eastern Conference as it's not as strong? I don't think the Boston Celtics can tank. The only way you can tank is you would have to trade Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Porzingis. Like you realistically have to move off all four of them because even if you keep two of them, this is a play-in team. Like 38 wins got you into the play-in this year in the Eastern Conference. So this isn't the West, and this Celtics team is a lot better than that Warriors team was when they went down with injuries. So I think there's no world where the Celtics go in like 100% tank. Will the team be worse the next year? Probably, but I don't think there's any chance, barring something catastrophic. And I mean, like multiple guys have season-ending surgeries next year that they get like a top 10 pick. Although, is it better in the long run? Possibly. It just doesn't really feel realistic. This comes from Bucket Rewind. Which players would you consider letting Jaylen Brown go for? You know what I'm going to do real quick? I'm going to look up annual salaries for NBA players just to see kind of the players the Celtics would be able to get for Jaylen Brown. So let's look at the 25, 26 contracts because he is amongst the highest, right? He is the 11th highest paid player in the NBA from a annual basis in the 25, 26 season. So Giannis is off the table. He's making more than Jaylen Brown. You just not gonna be able to swing that trade. Again, you can't aggregate salaries to go and get these guys. Kevin Durant is another one, $54 million. With that being said, the Celtics can make a move prior to a huge Jaylen Brown trade, even if that's going to be a thing, which I have a hard time believing, where they can move off a Drew or a KP, get below that second apron. Then I believe they'd be able to aggregate some salaries. Again, I'm not a CBA expert by any means, but that's my understanding. So it's a possibility. But just thinking of some guys that get paid less than Jaylen Brown, Devin Booker makes the same amount of money as him. I don't think the Celtics have what it takes to get Devin Booker. They do have a bunch of draft picks and they have some role players that could be interesting to Phoenix, but I don't understand why you would trade KD, you would trade Devin Booker, but then get Jaylen Brown back. You would just probably keep Devin Booker. Some other guys that could possibly be available, it's ugly, right? Like it's LeBron obviously not going anywhere, Cat not going anywhere, or not to the Celtics at least. Kawhi, Zach LaVine. I've seen Lauri Markkanen in a bunch of trade options or a bunch of trade packages. I don't think a Jaylen Brown for Lauri Markkanen trade really makes sense for either side. Lauri's coming off a pretty bad season. You got Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young. Like it's just hard. It's really difficult to find players that would make sense, like Zion at $39 million, but are you trading Jaylen Brown for Zion? I don't think that makes much sense. So yeah, unless you could get Giannis, it's not happening. Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, is not going anywhere, barring something that I can't see happening. Let's keep moving on here. Cheese says in the Bear podcast. Shout out to Cheese and the Bear. I was on them a couple months ago. He said predict the starting lineup for the Celtics next year. Hashtag Derek White. They've been wanting Derek White on the Bucks. He's not going to the Bucks, brother. So next season, the starting lineup. This is actually a good question. Let's just real quick look at the Celtics depth chart to see what we're working with. Because obviously Tatum's not going to be healthy game one, right? So again, just guys that I'm looking at as untouchable: Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and I think Al Horford returns. I've seen people like, oh, he's not going to compete for a championship. Is he going to leave? Al Horford, I think, either resigns or he retires. And from some of the reporters that I've seen from Boston, is they would be surprised if Al Horford retires. So it's my understanding that Horford will be back. And if Horford's back, he's probably in the starting lineup. So I think Payne Pritchard, although he probably deserves a starting spot and he's probably the best player, his six-man role is just so good. We saw countless times throughout this regular season when guys were in and out the lineup. Mazzulla is willing to put Torrey Craig out there or Sam Hauser or, go down the line. Of course, a Luke Cornett like we saw tonight. Payne Pritchard is a six-man. I don't think he's going to get put into the starting lineup. But with that being said, to start off the season, maybe it's not crazy. So predicting the starting lineup for next season, I think you have Derek White at the one, you have Jaylen Brown, and you have Al Horford. Those are your three starters. Drew and KP feel like guys that just aren't going to be here. So if we're going with my Dallas Mavericks trade, which is Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, I don't like that starting lineup. I don't like Derek White, Jaylen Brown, PJ, Al, and Gafford. This is tough because we really just don't know. Like Sam Hauser could be thrown into this mix just to add some spacing. He's also a guy that's making, like 10, $11 million. This is tough. Like I really tried to find trades for Boston that make sense for them and for the other teams, but it's difficult. Brad Stevens is going to have a really tough job, and I don't envy it whatsoever. So my first gut, if not knowing what trades happen right now, but assuming Drew and Porzingis are off this team, it's Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Pritchard are probably in the starting lineup, Sam Hauser, and Al Horford. But again, you're going to be moving off these guys for some players. I like the Gafford deal, so I would have Gafford in the starting lineup. And then you probably start PJ, but I wouldn't be opposed to a guy like Sam Hauser just for spacing purposes. This comes from J-Rod. What do you like KD with the Jays? I would love Kevin Durant on this team. Is it realistic? Probably not. You have other teams like the Houston Rockets, Detroit Pistons. You have some teams that just have a higher probability of getting Kevin Durant, who are probably more desperate to get Kevin Durant, who have better young players and draft assets to get him. I think the only way Kevin Durant comes here is basically he goes to the Suns front office like, listen, I want to go to Houston or I want to go to the Celtics. And the Suns are like, well, we don't want to give you to Houston, even though they have their draft picks. It's hard to see Kevin Durant, really get to this team. Because the other part of it too is he's an aging player, and getting Kevin Durant, although he would be awesome, it does kind of shorten the timeline for this team. You're getting a guy that is a couple years left. He deals with injuries every single season, and next year it's like Tatum probably doesn't play. So are you with KD and Jaylen Brown? You're contenders. Don't get me wrong, but you want to see all three of them together, and you'd be missing a year with them. So now Kevin Durant's going into the 26th season at like 37 years old. I would love it, but I don't know how realistic it is. This comes from Joe Star. Can there be a KP and Luca pairing again? I haven't thought about Porzingis to the Lakers much at all. Um, it could happen, right? The Lakers desperately need a big, and he would be an awesome big for the Lakers. But what can you give back if you're the Lakers, right? Because Porzingis right now is making around $30 million, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. He's making, yeah, $30.7 million next year. The Lakers, the thing is with the Lakers, they have salaries, right? The Lakers have a lot of salaries. Let me just pull up their payroll real quick. Los Angeles, that's the Clippers, the Lakers. They have salaries that would be able to match, right? Looking at their 25, 26. You got Rui at $18 million, DFS at a $15 million option, Reeves at 13, Jared at 11, Gabe at 11, Maxi at 11. What does that package look like to get to 30 million? It is probably Rui and a guy like Vando, and do you throw in like a Dalton Connect, maybe just like a young player that the Celtics would covet? Because like, does Rui like get the job done? Like KP's a better player. Rui's a solid offensive player, but defensively he could be a mess. DFS feels like just a perfect player next to Luca, so I don't know if you really want to move off of him. It could happen. It's a bit difficult to see that trade get through, and it's also the Celtics and Lakers interested in making a trade with each other. But the Lakers have a lot of options. I don't know if Porzingis is really in their cards. Another guy that, they already have guys that deal with injuries. LeBron's up there in age. Luca kind of deals with these nagging injuries his last couple of seasons. And we just saw them, fail Mark Williams physical. I don't know if Porzingis is the guy that they'd be willing to go after. This comes from Carl. Is Luke Cornett the starting center next season? And how would you approach next season knowing JT most likely is going to play at all? We didn't talk about Luke Cornett in my starting five. My apologies. Luke Cornett is a free agent, so I wasn't taking that into account. I was just looking at some of the salaries here. He has a chance to. I think Luke Cornett showed this season to be an awesome backup big. I'm sorry, this fly is going crazy in this damn room. Um, I think I swayed it away. But I think Luke Cornett showed that he could be an awesome third big, right? Being an awesome third big and being an awesome starting center are two completely different things. So I think I would be open to it to see how it goes. And he's not going to get a huge contract. The Celtics do have bird rights, so they can match whatever Luke Cornett gets in free agency this upcoming season. But I don't know if he'd be the starting center, just knowing how Mazzulla likes to play. He likes to have five shooters out there. With that being said, though, without Tatum, it's gonna be weird. Second part of the question: how would you approach next season knowing JT is going to play at all? I think you try to compete, not for a championship, but you just try to compete, be a playoff team, win a playoff series. Like I said earlier, it's difficult to see a world where this team bottoms out and is in the lottery. So I think you compete with Jaylen Brown, and just try to be a pesky team in the postseason. Can you win a playoff series? I think that's really what the mindset should be going into next season. What's going on here? We have a lot of just other kind of trade questions. Give us three players outside of JT and JB you want to improve on in the offseason. Of course, if they're still on the team. PS, also, can be Mazzulla if you want. Okay. I like Mazzulla. I don't see them moving off him. So three players you can improve on. That's hard. Again, it's hard to improve on this roster. The Celtics are not going to be able to improve on this roster next season. Who's a better six man than Peyton Pritchard? They don't exist. Who's a better 3-point shooter than Sam Hauser? It's hard to find one. Who's a better, backup fifth starter than Al Horford? It's really difficult to find one. Who's a better fourth guy than Derek White? It's hard to find, real guys that can upgrade this team. I will say though, my answer would be these young players, right? Baylor Shireman, I thought gave some really good minutes towards the end of the season. We didn't get to see much of Jordan Walsh at all this year. I was a bit surprised that Baylor had more trust from Joe in the beginning of the season, but shit, Joe was right. I think Baylor showed more than Jordan Walsh has. But with some of these guys going out, assuming these guys get traded, of course, I would like to see probably more Baylor minutes, more Jordan Walsh minutes. Again, it's a bit of a lost season next year. See what these young guys have, especially Jordan, who's going into year 3 next year. Let's see, probably only a couple other questions. Are we through all of them? Let me do one more refresh. Okay, this is actually a good one. This comes from Zay3 Juan. Do you sell high on Derek White for a Mikal Bridges-like deal due to the fact of what his age is and by the time Boston will be serious contenders? This is an interesting question because Derek White is 30 years old. 30 years old. He'll be 31 at the start of next season. And as much as I love Derek White, you can 1,000% make the argument that his value will never be higher. He's coming off his best season as a pro. He is a high level defender, a high level shooter, and he is perfect as like this third, fourth option on Boston. So if you were in the buy low, sell high kind of mindset, Derek White is the guy that like, oh, we can sell high on him. With that being said, Derek White, like 33 years old, I think we'll be fine. Like Drew Holiday is 35, I want to say, maybe 36, around that, and he's still playing at a high level. And of course, Derek White probably isn't the player Drew was like at his absolute peak, but Derek White also doesn't feel like somebody who's going to fall off due to age, right? He is a smart player. He really knows how to attack angles. He's a great shooter. He positions himself super well. He's not someone that relies on athleticism that makes me think that, you know, when he becomes 33 years old, all of a sudden he's just not going to be a good player. I'm going to do one more refresh. Oh, I do have 14 new notifications. Okay, let me see if there's anything else we find here before we sign off. I'm going to try to do more videos. Don't hold me to it. I'm going to try to find more videos. Um, no, that's pretty much everything. It's more just trade questions, and maybe I should have came here with more trades. But realistically, I'll open up Fanspo because guess what? This is my YouTube channel. I get to do whatever the hell I want. But like some of these trades are nuts. Like some of these trades I see, like Giannis in a Spurs jersey, Naz Reid in a Celtics jersey, like Naz Reid and Donte DiVincenzo for Porzingis. This damn fly is back. Sorry, I love animals. Naz Reid and Porzingis Naz Reid and Donte for Porzingis and Drew Holiday. It's like that would be awesome. Or the Wolves, like, is that a realistic trade? It's really hard to find trades here. There's another one like a 4-team trade where Giannis goes to the Heat and KP goes to the Bucks and Naz Reid goes to like. There's just so much here that's just it's simply not realistic. But if you guys have any trade ideas, any trade rumors, drop them down in the comments. Let me know what you think. The one trade I do feel pretty confident in, and a trade that I would make, and that makes sense for both sides, be Drew Holiday going to the Dallas Mavericks for a Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington like deal. I'll try to do some more research. I'll try to put some more trade packages together, possibly in a future video. But I wanted to get something out here just for the end of the game. And as we sign off here, I'll say this. It's the first time in a while where Boston just straight up disappointed me. Losing to the Knicks sucks too, right? Like they were lost to the Pacers. I've been like, damn, that sucks. But the Knicks, being someone from the New Jersey, New York area, have a bunch of Knicks friends who are fans. So it sucks. Gonna have to hear it from them. But every dog's got its day, man. I think if you're a Celtics fan, the bright side is number one, you won the championship last year, and if you go back with all the heartbreak that Boston has given us as fans, every team in the association would sign up for what Boston has gone through the last 3 to 4 years. They have two finals appearances, they have an ECF appearance, and they did lose in the second round next year. So, as much as this sucks, as much as it's awful to see your favorite team lose in the second round as minus 900 favorites, as kind of many people looked at the series as a joke, saying, no way, New York has a chance in hell to win. I think you just have to give New York credit, man. The New York Knicks were the better team for at least half of this series, right? I don't know if I would say all of the series, but at least half of this series. I can't sit here and be like, Celtics got cheated. Like, of course, Tatum goes down with injury. They were going down 3-1 with Jason Tatum in the lineup. I can't use that as an excuse, and no Celtics fan should be using that as an excuse. So we'll be dropping Pick a Side episode tomorrow. It's Friday right now, so Saturday the 17th if you're seeing this. But Boston fans, man, embrace the struggle. That feels stupid coming in my mouth. We're Celtics fans. We're not Hornets fans with all due respect. Struggling for Boston is a second round exit, but embrace it, man. I think part of the reason why sports is so great is nothing's guaranteed. Everyone thought it was a guarantee that Boston was going to advance. It wasn't a guarantee. Everyone thinks that you win a championship and then you're going to go back to back. It hasn't happened in 7 years now, right? 2018 was the last time it happened. So every team since then has lost in the second round. It's really, really difficult to repeat as champions, and that's not using that as an excuse. I still think they should have won this series looking at those first two games, but just embrace the struggle, man. This is going to make that 19th banner sweeter when that day comes, and it will come. Is it next year? Is it the year after? Is it in 10 years? I don't know, but that day will come. And we could look back at this Knicks series and be like, you remember when we lost the New York Knicks as minus 900 favorites and Jason Tatum tore his Achilles? That's the way I'm looking at the series. That's the way I'm looking at the rest of this, or at least going into this offseason. We won a championship last year, ECF the year before, and the finals the year before. there's people out there that are Bulls fans, that are Hornets fans, that are Wizards fans, that are Knicks fans who this is the first time they're going to the ECF in 25 years. So I think just having a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Just awareness, just self-awareness of what this Boston team has given us over the years. At some point, they were going to disappoint us, right? At some point, they were going to come up short. At some point, shit was going to hit the fan. And it sucks that it goes out with your best player, with your franchise superstar tearing his Achilles. But that's just how sometimes sports goes. That being said, appreciate you watching. 30-minute video, easily my longest. And this camera has moved an awful lot since I set it up. Didn't notice that. But again, I'm just shooting at the hip from here. Appreciate y'all watching. Talk to you later.